Everyone started talking about COVID tests and what was going to be needed and how it was going to be delivered. We didn't really appreciate the scale at all that it was going to end up being. Those appointment booking solutions are national facing systems where an individual can go onto a website, have an appointment booking, but it's not just about the individual going on themselves, it's also about all of the systems and the processes that sit behind it.
Before we even started the project, you knew what the pressures were, because every day you'd see the government announcing what the statistics were that weren't good.
It's when the NHS threw some of the figures at us to say, yeah, you need to do this for 500,000 appointments an hour. Then we realised, okay, we'd never done anything this big before.
Technically, with an IT solution, when you deliver a product of this size and this scale to this sort of project, you would expect to see certain problems along the way which we didn't hit, and that's what we're super proud of. It's testament to the teams at ACF and Microsoft that we were able to do that and stay out of the news. It was the biggest thing for us,
I'm really pleased and proud that we live in the UK. It has contributed to people getting the protection that they need sooner, faster, and I just think that had this not been successful, it would have inevitably led to more people contracting COVID and not getting the care they needed sooner.
Hello, my name is Lawrence. I'm the Technical Director at ACF Technologies and one of the lead architects on the COVID-19 NHS National Booking Service. In this presentation, I will give an overview of the project and the challenges we faced, a walkthrough of the system focusing on customer and user experience, and then discuss a bit about where the platform is today. After the initial emergence of COVID, we were contacted by the NHS to do a short proof of concept to demonstrate our expertise in developing an appointment booking solution. We were successful and asked to implement the National COVID Vaccination Booking System, or National Booking System as it's now called. You don't consider the scale of such a project until you're told that this is literally the entire eligible population for vaccines, over 40 million people, and it needed to be delivered as rapidly as possible, COVID being such a critical situation at the time. There was a lot of uncertainty and evolving needs going into the project. The initial consideration of this looked a little bit like on the screen. A huge number of complex requirements, systems integrations, large numbers of stakeholders, and different user groups. We're able to rely upon our 20 years of business expertise in developing appointment booking solutions to quickly form an effective team and begin rolling out the project. So what did we implement? As a bird's eye view, this is how the project broke down. We designed and developed an online booking system for the public, a back-end administrative interface for site users, managers, and administrators, implemented many integrations to other systems, notifications out to patients, check-in capabilities on site, and then a training plan, and all delivered omni-channel as well. At the heart of this was the national booking site that many people watching this presentation may have used to book their vaccinations. This was integrated in with a large number of back-end NHS systems, such as the National Immunisation Service, front-end staff check-in applications, 119 service, Gov Notifier for providing email and SMS notifications out to patients, and then a comprehensive back-end administration suite for managing vaccine diaries, running reports, and doing general site administration. The stakeholders involved in this project broke down into three groups. The public, who were using the various booking channels to arrange their appointments of where and when they wanted to receive their vaccinations. The staff and volunteers, at the vaccination sites who would be administering the doses and checking in patients, and then the managers and administration who would be ensuring sites and processes were running smoothly. I'll now do a walkthrough of the National Booking System site, focusing upon the user and customer experience. The initial cohort invited to use the site were the vulnerable and the elderly. Therefore, from the very start, we had to ensure that ease of use and accessibility were baked into it. So here is the National Booking Service site that many people who have used it will be familiar with. So first of all, we enter our postcode and we're taken straight through to asking, do you have any accessibility needs? And then from there, choosing a vaccination site, choosing a date, a time range, and a specific time. Being asked, would you like to receive confirmation of your booking or not? And then if I say something like no, being prompted, or if you don't want notification, how would you like to be contacted? So I can say I don't wish to be contacted. And then we receive our confirmation with clear information about when, where, what happens on the day, and what happens if anything needs to be changed. Having done a walkthrough of the site, I'll now focus on some of the customer experience elements that were baked into it. First of all, being that any member of the public might use the site, and there were tens of thousands of staff who would be using the system as well, we had to ensure that there was a responsive user interface across all devices and all technologies. We needed to ensure the site was as easy to use and as straightforward as possible. So every screen was given a consistent common design. Every page would have clear labeling indicating to a patient the purpose. Every field would have clear call to action so that they knew what to enter. And every button and control would be clearly labelled so that a patient would know what would happen when they clicked it. When we imported the over 1,000 sites into our administration system, we also imported all of the accessibility capabilities that that site had, whether it had step-free access or various other options. This allowed us to then cater for any access needs that people might have. So when they go onto the site, they were able to choose if they were hard of hearing, an induction loop, if they were visually impaired, a Braille translation service, or step-free access or wheelchair access or anything else. We also found from user feedback that it was beneficial to do a clear flow of the previous options. What that means is the things you have selected and chosen from previous pages are also shown on the subsequent pages. This ensures that you don't forget what you've picked, you don't forget what site you've chosen, what date you've chosen, what access needs you've chosen, because it's clearly displayed on the screen. And again, from user testing, we ensured that we implemented single-purpose screens. We could have implemented flashy widgets on the screen for picking dates, picking times that expand and shrink and scroll and move and things like that. But from user testing, we found that that was difficult to understand for people who are not necessarily IT literate or familiar with the principles of using websites as much as other people are. And so the decision was made for these single-purpose screens. On one screen, you'll be asked just which date. Click next. The next screen, you'll be only asked pick a time range. And then on the final screen, you're only asked pick an available arrival time. The same principles were used for staff systems, such as the on-site check-in. A simple, clear progression flow of questions so that staff could verify who they were talking to and ensure that they were getting the dose that they need. And then finally, we wanted to provide screens and systems for on-site managers and administrators at vaccine centres to be able to plan availability, to project capacity. Any unforeseen circumstances, such as when AstraZeneca was restricted to just the over 40s, we developed a tool that allowed site managers to find anybody who had under 40 who had a AstraZeneca vaccination scheduled, to be able to find them and amend them on bulk. Send an invitation to that patient to say, unfortunately, we had to cancel your vaccination, please rebook again. And they would then be scheduled an alternative vaccination. And then finally, we wanted to ensure that nothing within the system was hard-coded. We knew that efficacy, that dosage spacing could and would change. And so we provided screens that allowed central administrators to quickly and easily change those parameters, which would be reflected in real time on the public-facing sites. And then finally, we all remember the daily updates from Boris Johnson and Chris Whitty talking about the numbers of vaccinations. These statistics were obtained directly from our system using reports that we implemented and generated for the government. Throughout the booking process, patients were kept informed of what, where and when they had chosen through notifications. Any reminders were also sent to them, as well as any cancellations or amendments that they needed to be aware of, which is standard good customer experience. So this project was one of constant change. There was new information about vaccine efficacy and dosage spacing coming out. There were new vaccines coming out. And also, with a system that was delivered in such short timelines, there were always opportunities to refine that process, to make it easier for people to use the system. So how did we go about doing that? We used a lot of online analytics to track click processes, to monitor attention and focus of people using the site, so we could refine the on-screen elements. There was a lot of prototyping that was put in place with A and B testing to see which form of the screens would be easier and clearer to use. Here on screen here is an early prototype that was rejected. And then there was a lot of monitoring of the press and the social media, so we could track any negative feedback, any positive feedback, and implement that into the system. For example, a simple piece of feedback here. Do you have any accessibility needs? On the left is the initial, and on the right was the introduction of a none of the above option. Because in feedback we found that people who had no accessibility needs weren't sure what to click, and so an option was given to them. A second example. Originally, people would choose their arrival time and then enter their confirmation details. But anybody who didn't want to be contacted was unsure about how to opt out of being contacted. And so we introduced an intermediary screen giving them that choice. Would you like to receive confirmation of your booking or not? Which would lead to different flows depending on what you chose. To tie everything together, the project team developed a comprehensive training site, allowing any member of the NHS staff to log in and get information and knowledge-based material about any of the systems and software developed. So where is the platform today? After 18 months of continuous delivery and adapting to change, to date we've had over 100 million appointments booked, over 40 million patients. Our busiest day had over 1 million individual appointments booked. And even going forwards, there may be new vaccine types, new dose spacing, and new cohort groups introduced. For example, recently, the under 12s can now get their vaccination on this system. So in closing, I've had members of my family use this system to book their vaccinations. Friends and colleagues and other people that we know have all used this system, and therefore it's something that myself and all the people at ACF Technologies and within the NHS project group are extremely privileged and proud to have worked on, knowing that it has affected such a large number of people positively. Thank you.